Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today's Friday, January 31st, 2020. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's tennis and look ahead to tonight, as well as college basketball, NBA, and NHL, my prediction for the Super Bowl, my favorite Super Bowl props, and my best bet of the day. Okay, we're going to start in tennis with the Australian Open. We're going to pick the finals in both the men and women's. But we have to go over the semifinals first. So, Dominic Thiem over Alexander Zverev in 4 sets. Time's your 5 seed. Zverev was your 7. And on Super Bowl Sunday at 3:30 in the morning, so it's technically tomorrow night in the early Sunday morning, 5-seeded Dominic Thiem against 2-seeded Novak Djokovic, 3:30 a.m. on ESPN. My pick for this, I'm going to go with Joke. I think it will be in 4 sets. I think it will be competitive. Thiem is somebody that's had a good tournament. And Djokovic lost his number 1 ranking to Nadal. And I think that he has a big chip on his shoulder. So I think he's going to come out and kick butt. So give me Djokovic in 4 sets to win the men's 2020 Australian Open. Women's side, Gabriela Muguruza over 4-seeded Simona Halep in 2 sets. Muguruza is on a great run right now, and tonight at 3:30 a.m. on ESPN, she'll be facing 14-seeded Sofia Kenin in the final. And guess what? I think Muguruza is going to win. This is her time. This is a Cinderella story in the making. I really think that this is really like something that people are going to be talking about as the next great tennis star. Gabriela Muguruza is my pick to win the 2020 Australian Open Women's over 14-seeded Sofia Kenin. I think it'll take 3 sets. So expect a very competitive match tonight and match tomorrow night as well. Now we're going to talk college basketball. We're going to go over the games from last night, and we'll look ahead to tonight and the rest of the weekend. Sacred Heart over Mount St. Mary's 58-53. Gardner-Webb over UNC Asheville 70-56. Charleston over James Madison 87-68. Hopes over Alani 86-63. Towson over UNC Wilmington 77-66. William & Mary over Northeastern 59-58. Radford over Longwood 67-55. South Carolina Upstate over Presbyterian 77-74. North Alabama over NJIT 78-74. Liberty over Kennesaw State 83-45. North Florida over Stetson 78-65. High Point over Campbell 62-58. UIC over Youngstown State 90-83 in overtime. Georgia State over South Alabama 76-73. Cleveland State over IUPUI 72-62. FAU over Western Kentucky 69-65. Marshall over FIU 84-74. Robert Morris over Bryant 64-54. St. Francis, Pennsylvania over Central Connecticut 84-77. Fairleigh Dickinson over Wagner 68-63. Florida Gulf Coast over Jacksonville 63-61. Georgia Southern over Troy 86-57. Merrimack over St. Francis Brooklyn 61-50. Number 19 Illinois over Minnesota 59-51. Louisiana Tech over Charlotte 72-59. Little Rock over Coastal Carolina 96-79. Purdue Fort Wayne over North Dakota 72-68. Morehead State over Southeast Missouri State 90-74. Eastern Kentucky over Tennessee Martin 99-86. Winthrop over Charleston Southern 77-60. App State over Arkansas State 71-64. Texas State over UL Monroe 71-51. Louisiana over Texas Arlington 66-65. UAB over UTSA 76-68. Grand Canyon over Texas Rio Grande 87-79. Old Dominion over Southern Miss 68-58. Number 15 Maryland over number 18 Iowa 82-72. BYU over Pepperdine 107-80. Tennessee State over Jacksonville State 72-62. Murray State over Eastern Illinois 73-70. North Dakota State over Western Illinois 70-49. Number 11 Oregon over Cal 77-72. South Dakota over Denver 93-87. Arizona over Washington 75-72. Weber State over Southern Utah 75-65. Also P over Southeastern or SIU Edwardsville 82-58. Belmont over Tennessee Tech 92-84. UTEP over Middle Tennessee 67-66. New Mexico State over Cal State Bakersfield 61-57. Northern Colorado over Idaho State 83-67. USC over Utah 56-52. Cal Poly over Cal State Fullerton 101-100 in overtime. UC Riverside over Long Beach State 77-69. San Francisco over San Diego 69-44. Pacific over Loyola Marymount 62-50. St. Mary's over Portland 86-64. Portland State over Montana 88-81. Number 2 Gonzaga over Santa Clara 87-72. UCLA upsets number 20 Colorado 72-68. Oregon State over Stanford 68-63. And Cal State Northridge over UC Santa Barbara 79-67. Tonight's slate 5 o'clock on ESPNU. Harvard at Penn. Penn is a 1-point favorite. I would make this a pick'em. Tough here. Pick'em versus Penn -1. It's saying I have an edge in Harvard, but it's a home game for Penn. Normally, if it's a pick'em, I would pick the home team in my mind, but the numbers are saying edge in Harvard. I'm going to test my system. I'm going to take Harvard in the 1 here tonight. Then you have on CBS Sports Network, Akron at Kent State at 6:30. On CBS Sports Network, Kent State is a 1.5 point favorite. I would make this Kent State by 2, so I feel like I'm getting a half-point discount with Kent State. So give me Kent State minus the 1.5. Cornell at Brown, Bowling Green at Buffalo on ESPNU. Buffalo is a 4.5 point home favorite. In my system, I have Bowling Green 2 points better than Buffalo. So, it's really saying Buffalo by 1, so I feel like I'm getting an advantage here at Bowling Green plus the points. I think Buffalo will win, but I think Bowling Green covers 4.5. Oakland at Detroit Mercy. Quinnipiac at Canisius. Fairfield at Rider. VCU at Rhode Island, 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Rhode Island is a 1-point home favorite. I'd make this Rhode Island by 3 because I think these two teams are even. So give me Rhode Island minus the 1 at home tonight. Santa at Iona. Manhattan at St. Peter's. Niagara hosts Marist. Columbia at Yale. Dartmouth at Princeton. Wright State at Milwaukee at 8 o'clock and at 9 o'clock on ESPNU. Northern Kentucky at Green Bay. Northern Kentucky is a 2.5 point favorite on the road. These two teams, in my mind, are 3.5 points apart. So I would make Northern Kentucky minus 3.5 on a neutral. It's at Green Bay, so it narrows down the pick 'em. So I'm going to take Green Bay plus the 2.5. I think they win the game on the court tonight. So give me Green Bay tonight. 11 o'clock on Fox tomorrow afternoon. Xavier at number 10, Seton Hall. I make the Seton Hall by 7.5. I think Seton Hall wins and covers that number. Creighton at number 8, Villanova, 12 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. I have Villanova by 6.5. I think Nova covers that number. Ole Miss at number 22, LSU. On ESPN2, I have LSU by 9. I think they'd cover that. CBS Sports Network, Bryant at St. Francis, Pennsylvania. I'd make St. Francis, PA by 6.5. I think they'd cover that. Western Kentucky at FIU. Indiana at Ohio State on ESPN. I'd make this Ohio State by 1. I think Ohio State needs this game and they'll get it. Georgia Tech at Notre Dame on ACC Network. I would make this game Notre Dame by 6. I think they'd win and probably cover that. Hartford at Maine. Number 14, Michigan State at Wisconsin at 1 o'clock on Fox. I'd make this game Sparty by 5, and I'd take the points. A&M at Georgia. I'd make this game Georgia by 2. Georgia has been in a slump. I think they'll get it done. They're the best player on the court, Anthony Edwards. UConn at Memphis. I'd make this game... Oh, I didn't jot this one down. So UConn at Memphis. in my rankings, these two teams are very far apart, 9.5 points apart. And Memphis is home, so I had 3. So 12.5, I'd make Memphis. And at that point, I'd take UConn in the points just to keep it competitive. Central Connecticut at Robert Morris, Ohio at Ball State, UMKC at Chicago State, Louisville at NC State, number 6 Louisville at NC State. I make this Louisville by 4.5. I think they'd cover that. Kansas State, number 12 West Virginia, 2 o'clock on ESPN2. I'd make this West Virginia by 9, and I think that they cover that because it's a revenge spot. They lost to Kansas State a few weeks ago. 2 o'clock Fox Sports 1, Providence at number 16 Butler. I'd make this Butler by 6. I think Providence covers that, but Butler wins. Coppin State at Delaware State, Troy at Georgia State, Western Carolina at Chattanooga, Iowa State at Texas at 2 o'clock on the Longhorn Network. I'd make this Texas by 7. I think that Iowa State can hang around in that spot. UNC Asheville at Winthrop, BU at Bucknell, Tennessee at Mississippi State on ESPNU. I'd make this Mississippi State by 3.5. I think that Tennessee would cover that. But like I said, I'm not going to really bet on these games until the Vegas numbers come out. Then I'll pick a side. But straight up, I take Mississippi State. DePaul at Marquette, 2 o'clock. I'd make this Marquette by 7.5. I'm just going to say the straight up pick, and that's Marquette. Charleston at Towson, Delaware hosts Drexel. American at Lafayette. Toledo at Eastern Michigan. CBS Sports Network, Holy Cross hosts Colgate. I'd make this game Colgate by 7. And I think Colgate would win. Central Michigan versus Western Michigan. Northern Iowa, Evansville. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma on ABC at 3 o'clock. I would make this game Oklahoma by 6. I think Oklahoma would win and probably cover that. App State, Little Rock. Tennessee Martin, Morehead State. UO Monroe, UT Arlington. UIC, Cleveland State. Charlotte, Southern Miss. North Texas, Rice. 3:30, Mount St. Mary's, Fairleigh Dickinson. SEC, North Missouri at South Carolina. I'd make the South Carolina by 5. I think South Carolina would win this game. TCU, number 1 Baylor. I'd make this Baylor by 7. And I think Baylor would win and probably cover that. Number 2, Gonzaga at San Francisco. My number spits Gonzaga by 6.5. That's just gross. That's like a steal. I have to do some adjusting numbers probably because Gonzaga kills everybody. And they're going to probably win that game by double digits. Texas Tech at number 3, Kansas. I have Kansas by 7. I think Kansas wins the game, but I don't know if they'll cover that number. Number 5, Florida State at Virginia Tech. I have this as a pick'em. And I think that Virginia Tech will get its signature win it's looking for in conference play. George Mason at St. Bonaventure. I'd make this Bonaventure by 4.5, and I think they'd cover that. Charleston Southern, Radford. Presbyterian, Hampton. Marshall, FAU, Middle Tennessee, UTSA. Northeastern, Elon, UNC Wilmington, James Madison. Oregon State at Cal on the Pac-12 Network. This is disgusting, but I'd make this game Cal by, what's the number? 1.5. But Oregon State will probably win this game, but my number's spitting out Cal. LIU at Merrimack. Sacred Heart at St. Francis, Brooklyn. UNC Greensboro at East Tennessee State. These two teams are a combined 35-9. I'd make this game East Tennessee State by 3.5. I think they'd cover that. Bethune-Cookman at Florida A&M. Morgan State at Howard. Norfolk State at NC SC State at NC Central. Southeast Missouri State, Eastern Kentucky. South Alabama, Georgia Southern. UCF at South Florida on ESPNU. I'd make this game a pick'em. And South Florida's been playing a little better. I think they win this game. Idaho at Northern Arizona. Indiana State at Mizzou State. I'd make this game Mizzou State by 1. We'll see what the number is when it comes out. But Indiana State, I think, would win this game straight up. But if numbers say otherwise, I would bet Missouri State. UNLV, Colorado State. I'd make this game Colorado State by 4, and I think Colorado State wins the game. Miami of Ohio at Northern Illinois on CBS Sports Network. My number for this is Northern Illinois by 7. I think Northern Illinois wins the game, but I don't know if they'll cover that number. Central Arkansas at Northwestern State. Hofstra at St. Mary, or William and Mary, my bad. Cal Baptist, Seattle. 4:30 NBCSN Fordham at number 7 Dayton. I have Dayton by 20. I think Dayton crushes them. They'll probably cover that. 4:30 Big Ten Network from Madison Square Garden. Number 25 Rutgers at Michigan, or versus Michigan. I make Michigan by 2 on a neutral. I think Rutgers wins this game because there will be more Rutgers fans in the building than Michigan fans. Lamar at McNeese, Campbell, USC Upstate, Longwood, Gardner Webb, the Citadel, Mercer, Eastern Illinois, Austin P, 5 o'clock Kennesaw, North Florida, Jackson State, Mississippi Valley State, Coastal Carolina, Arkansas State, Old Dominion, Louisiana Tech, that's in Lipscomb, New Orleans, Southeast Louisiana, New Mexico at Fresno State. These two teams, neither of them are very good. New Mexico got that good start, and then they fell apart. Fresno's home. And these two teams in my ratings are 5 points apart. I'd make this New Mexico by 2. And I think New Mexico bounces back and wins here on the road. Wyoming at San Jose State. These two teams are 2.5 points apart in my rankings. So I'd make this game San Jose State by 5.5, which is just a disgusting number. I don't think either of these teams are that good. I think Wyoming would cover that projected number, but San Jose State would win. Navy at Loyola, Maryland, Belmont, Jacksonville State, New Hampshire, UMass Lowell, Louisiana, Texas State, number 11, Oregon at Stanford, 6 o'clock on the Pac-12 network. 3 points apart these two teams are in my rankings. I'd make this a pick-em, and I think that Stanford gets a signature win here. 6 o'clock, ESPN, number 13, Kentucky at number 17, Auburn. I'd make this game Auburn by 2.5 at home. And I think Auburn needs a signature win here to prove themselves for real. I think they get it. Number 21, Houston at Cincinnati on ESPN2. Houston's been playing very well lately. Cincinnati's been very good in conference play. These two teams are 7 points apart in my rankings, so 7 minus 3 is 4. So I'd make Houston a 4-point road favorite. They're playing really well, but I take Cincinnati plus the 4. Number 23, Wichita State at Tulsa on ESPNU. These two teams are 4 points apart in my rankings. I'd make this game Wichita by 1 on the road, but I like Tulsa here to win. IUPUI at Youngstown State, Pepperdine at Loyola Marymount. These two teams are 2.5 points apart in the rankings. I'd make this Loyola by 1 at home, and I would think that Pepperdine would win this game, though. Prairie View at Alabama State, Southern Illinois at Drake, George Washington at Richmond. Richmond's been a nice surprise in this Atlantic 10 so far. These two teams are 3.5 points apart. I'd make this Richmond by 6.5. I think they'd cover that. Columbia at Brown, Dartmouth at Penn, Harvard at Princeton, North Alabama at Jacksonville, East Carolina at Temple. These two teams are 2 points apart. It's crazy to think, but that's true. Plus 3, so Temple by 5. I don't know what the line's going to be when it comes out, but I think Temple will win the game. This is an interesting one. Boston College at North Carolina. These two teams are, I can't believe I'm saying this, are 2 points apart. I'd make this Carolina by 5, and I would still take Boston College in the points depending on what the line comes out. I think Carolina wins this game. They're playing a little bit better lately. They knocked off NC State, and then they knocked off Miami big. Carolina's playing a lot better lately. I think they'd win this game and probably cover that 5. SEC Network, you have Alabama and Arkansas. Arkansas's fallen off after a good start. These two teams in my rating are 1.5 apart. So I'd make this Alabama by 1.5 at home, and I think they cover that. They're playing pretty well right now. St. Louis at St. Joe's. St. Joe's obviously is a mess this year. These two teams are 12 points apart in my ratings. So it means St. Louis by 9. I think they cover that easily. 6:30, Stephen F. Austin at Sam Houston State. Alcorn State at Southern. 7 o'clock, Big Ten Network, number 24, Penn State at Nebraska. These two teams are 7.5 points apart in the rankings. So Penn State by 4.5. I think they cover that relatively easily. Stanford and Wofford, Cornell, Yale, Vermont, Albany, UC Santa Barbara, Long Beach State, Army, Lehigh, Florida Gulf Coast at Liberty, UMBC, Stony Brook, Texas Southern, Alabama A&M, North Dakota State, Purdue, Fort Wayne. 8 o'clock, ESPN, number 9, Duke at Syracuse. These two teams right now are 7 points apart in the rankings, considering how well Syracuse has played lately. So Duke by 4 on the road, I think they cover that, although I think Syracuse will hang around in that game. South Dakota State at Western Illinois, Denver at Oral Roberts, SAU Edwardsville, Murray State, Santa Clara, Portland. Santa Clara's fallen off after a very surprisingly good start to the season. These two teams are 7 points apart in the rankings right now. -3, so it would be Santa Clara by 4. I think they'd cover that pretty easily. Grambling at Arkansas Pine Bluff, Cal State Bakersfield at Texas Rio Grande. Tulane at SMU on ESPNU. SMU is off to a nice start. They've fallen off a little bit. These two teams are 9 points apart in my rankings, though. And so that's 3, so 12. SMU by 12 would be my number, but I think Tulane would cover that pretty easily. Cal Poly at UC Davis. UMass at Davidson on CBS Sports Network. These two teams are 2 points apart in the rankings. So I'd make this Davidson. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought UMass was home. 2 points apart in the rankings, so Davidson by 5. I still think UMass might cover that because Davidson is a very overrated team in college basketball this season. Clemson and Wake Forest on the ACC Network. These two teams are 7.5 points apart. -3, so Wake Forest is home, so 4.5. I think it's a possible trap game for Clemson. So I'd take the Wake Forest plus the 4.5, although I think Clemson will win. Arizona at Washington State. These two teams are 4.5 points apart in my rankings. So I mean, it's Arizona by 1.5. Arizona needs this game badly. I think they'll get it. Incarnate Word at Abilene Christian. Bradley at Loyola Chicago. Texas A&M Corpus Christi at Houston Baptist. Illinois State Valparaiso. Florida at Vandy on the SEC Network. It's crazy that these two teams are 3.5 points apart. I have to do some adjusting here. So this would be a pick-em. That's disgusting, but I take Florida anyway. They're just way better than Vandy. Tennessee State at Tennessee Tech. 9 o'clock, Grand Canyon and New Mexico State. Big Ten Network. Purdue at Northwestern. These two teams are 5.5 points apart in the rankings. So I made this Purdue by 2.5 on the road. I think they'd cover that pretty easily. Montana State at Montana. Weber State at Northern Colorado. Idaho State at Southern Utah. UTEP hosts UAB. Utah State at number 4, San Diego State. It's funny because Utah State was supposed to be the best team in this league before the season, and that turned out to be false. These two teams are 5 points apart in my rankings. So add 3 for home court advantage. So San Diego State by 8. I think they'd cover that easily. Nevada at Boise State. Boise's a half point better in my ranking, so I'd make this Boise by 3.5. I think Nevada probably covers that. 10 o'clock on ESPN2. St. Mary's at BYU. These two teams are 2.5 points apart in the rankings. So I'd make this BYU by 1. And I think St. Mary's wins. San Diego at Pacific. These two teams are 6 points apart in my rankings. I'd make the Pacific by 9. I think they'd cover that pretty easily. Eastern Washington at Sacramento State, 10:30 Fox Sports 1. You got number 20 Colorado at USC. These two teams are even in my rankings, so USC by 3. I think USC wins and covers that projected number. Cal State Fullerton at UC Irvine. Pac-12 Network, Arizona State at Washington. I have Washington a half-point better in my ratings, so Washington by 3.5. I think they win and cover that. They need that game. And then 1 a.m. Eastern, Cal State Northridge at Hawaii. Not many games on Super Bowl Sunday. At 12 o'clock, you got Miami at Pitt. These two teams are 1 point apart in my rating, so Pitt by 4. I think they'd cover that. Iona at Manhattan, 1 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. You have Illinois at Iowa. These two teams are pretty far apart in the ratings. I just don't believe in Illinois, so I have Iowa by 3.5 in my rating, so 6.5. But I think that the Illinois might hang around and has a chance to cover the number, but I would still take Iowa. Ryder at Monmouth, Quinnipiac at Niagara. On CBS on Super Bowl Sunday, you have Georgetown at St. John's. These two teams are even, so St. John's by 3. St. John's needs this game. I think they'll get it. South Dakota at Omaha. Wright State at Green Bay. Northern Kentucky at Milwaukee. Marist at Canisius. 2 o'clock LaSalle at Duquesne. These two teams are 6 points apart in my rating, so Duquesne by 9. I think they'd cover that, actually. And 3 o'clock, Utah at UCLA. UCLA coming off the big win over Colorado. Utah coming off a loss at USC. These two teams are even on a neutral, so UCLA by 3. But I kind of like Utah because I like the idea of a letdown for UCLA. And at 4 o'clock, you have Siena at St. Peter's. Now, finally, move on to the NBA. We'll go over last night's results and look ahead to tonight and the weekend. Raptors over Cavs, 115-109. Wizards over Hornets, 121-107. Hawks over Sixers, 127-117. Celtics over Warriors, 119-104. Nuggets over Jazz, 106-100. Kings over Clippers, 124-103. Tonight, 7 o'clock, Raptors, Pistons, Bulls, Nets at 7:30. On ESPN, you have the Mavericks at the Rockets. Houston's laying 9.5. That's too many points. I love the Mavs. That is a steal. A steal. I think the Rockets are overrated in the market right now, as it proved on Wednesday night. Rockets will win this game, but I think it'll be very competitive. 8 o'clock, Grizzlies, Pelicans. 9 o'clock, Nuggets, Bucks. Thunder, Suns. 10 o'clock on ESPN, Trailblazers, Lakers. Lakers giving 13. Mike Breen, Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, Doris Burke should all be on the call. This is, I think, going to be one of the biggest events of the sports year, but not for great circumstances, as we all are going to mourn or continue to mourn the loss of Kobe Bryant. Lakers' first home game since the passing. I'd lay it with the Lakers if that would be the case. That would be from my heart, but I kind of think Portland might hang around. Dame Lillard will have a big game. Lakers will win, but I just think that Portland is going to cover. That's such a big number. The Kings won outright as a 13.5-point dog in the Clippers' first home game since the passing of Kobe Bryant. But this is the Lakers. This isn't the Clippers. And Kobe was a Laker. The Kobe thing just happened to be a distraction for the other LA team. I think it'll be a distraction for the Lakers, too. Early on, I could see them getting off to a slow start, but I just think this is like a 7 or 8, at most a 10-point game. So give me the Lakers in what will be an emotional night at the Staples Center. 7 o'clock, Knicks Pacers on Saturday night. 3:30, Timberwolves Clippers. Back to 7 o'clock, Heat Magic. 8 o'clock, Nets Wizards. Wizards Cavs. This is tomorrow night, by the way. Hawks Mavs at 8:30. ABC 8:30, 76ers Celtics. I'd make the Celtics by 3. These teams are pretty close to even. Mark Jones, CB Brown on the call. I think the Celtics are going to win this game. They looked really good last night. I think they'll do it again tonight. So give me the Celts. 9 o'clock, Hornets at the Spurs. 10 o'clock, Lakers at the Kings. And 10:30, the Jazz at the Blazers. Super Bowl Sunday, only 4 games. 12 o'clock, Nuggets, Pistons. 2 o'clock, ABC, Pelicans at the Rockets. I think this will be a close game, but the Rockets will win. Suns, Bucks. And 3 o'clock, the Bulls at the Raptors. Now we'll talk NHL. We'll go over last night's games and look ahead to the weekend. Canadians over the Sabres 3-1. Preds over the Devils 6-5 in a shootout. Kings over the Coyotes 3-2 in overtime. Tonight, bigger slate, 7 o'clock, the Red Wings at the Rangers. Flyers at the Penguins, 7:30, Caps at the Sens. Knights at the Hurricanes. 8 o'clock, Bruins at the Jets. Blues at the Oilers at 9 and 10. Lightning at the Ducks. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock, Blue Jackets Sabres. 1 o'clock. And then Canucks Islanders, 2 o'clock, Panthers Canadians. 7 o'clock, Rangers, Red Wings, Senators, Maple Leafs, Stars, Devils, Avs, Flyers, Blues, Jets. 8 o'clock, Golden Knights, Predators, Bruins, Wild, Blackhawks, Coyotes. 10 o'clock, Oilers, Flames. 10:30, Ducks, Kings, Lightning, Sharks. Super Bowl Sunday, 12:30 NBC, the Penguins at the Capitals. Feels like the Capitals get the NBC game on Super Bowl Sunday every year. Doc Emmerich, Eddie Olczyk, Brian Boucher on the call. Capitals should win. They're the better team. Although Pittsburgh and Crosby like to hang around with them. So I'm going to say Caps 4-3 in overtime. 2 o'clock, Blue Jackets, Canadians, and the Canucks at the Hurricanes. And now, the moment you guys have been waiting for, my prediction for the Super Bowl. You have the Chiefs, who went 12-4 in the regular season, who are your 2 seed in the AFC. You have San Francisco went 13-3 this year, was your 1 seed in the NFC. 6:30, Fox, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Aaron Andrews, Chris Myers on the call. Should be a great game. You got Patrick Mahomes in that offense that's been lethal in the second half of the season and throughout the playoffs. Tyreek Hill, Damon Williams, LaShawn McCoy, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, Demarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman. I think all those guys are going to be involved. On the flip side on offense, better than giving credit for Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have a great statistical game against the Packers, but he didn't have to. It was their defense and run game that was getting it done, led by Raheem Morset, Tevin Coleman, who isn't healthy right now, and Matt Breida. And it looks like Coleman's going to play. They have good receivers as well, led by tight end George Kittle. You got Emmanuel Sanders, who came over at the deadline. You got Deebo Samuel. Kendrick Bourne's had an impact as well. So I think the 49ers are pretty deep in terms of skill position talent. And then you have the fullback Kyle Juszczyk, who really has had an impact this season for them. Defensively on the Chiefs side, you have Frank Clark, Chris Jones, who missed the division round with an injury, came back for the AFC Championship game. They can't afford Chris Jones to not be healthy. Their linebackers aren't great. Secondary's okay. Juan Thornhill's out for the season. He was a big help for them. Tyrann Mathieu has been a nice addition for this Chiefs defense. Kendall Fuller isn't bad. I'd give the edge to San Francisco defensively, and it's significant, just like the Chiefs have the significant quarterback advantage with Mahomes over Garoppolo. Niners pass rush, you have Dee Ford, by the way, who was on the Chiefs last year and committed that offsides penalty that cost the Chiefs a chance to go to the Super Bowl, arguably. Who's now playing for the 49ers, so you know he has revenge on his mind. You have the Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Nick Bosa. That's going to be announced tomorrow night. I'll do my picks for the awards in a couple minutes. You have Quan Alexander, who's had a nice year, and in the secondary, you have Richard Sherman, who has been amazing this year. It's looked like the Richard Sherman that was in his prime at Seattle. Special teams, I'd give the kicking edge to Robbie Gould over Harrison Butker. I think the 49ers have a punting advantage as well, although the KC punter is pretty darn good in his own right as well. So, all in all, I think the 49ers are going to win this game. I just feel that they're the better team. I think that they're going to sack Mahomes a bunch of times. I think their offensive line, the Chiefs' offensive line is pretty good, but I think the Niners' pass rush is better. You have Eric Fisher, who is the number 1 overall pick in the 2013 draft on the Chiefs' offensive line. You have Mitchell Schwartz, who's pretty good as well. Niners' offensive line is pretty good. You have Justin Pugh, the ex-Giant. You have Weston Richburg, the other ex-Giant. You have Mike McGlinchey, who's a second-year pro out of Notre Dame. So the Niners' offensive line is good in their own right as well. But I'm going to say the Niners win this game 27-23. Super Bowl MVP, I'm going to go with Nick Bosa, who I think will have over 2 sacks, maybe a forced fumble as well. It won't be surprising at all to me if it's 27 and let's say a weird number like 16 or 15 or 17. And then the Chiefs get a touchdown and they go for the 2-point conversion rather than the kick and they miss it or they make it. So I'm going to say 27-23 49ers, Super Bowl MVP, Nick Bosa. Now I'm going to do my favorite prop bets of the big game, and that is brought to you by FanDuel. There's a lot of them I really like. We are going to start with some player props. Patrick Mahomes passing yards, 300.5. I like the under. Garoppolo passing 240.5. I like the over. Dame Williams rushing yards, 50.5. I'd go over. Patrick Mahomes rushing yards, 30.5. I like the under. That's value at plus 104. Raheem Morris rushing yards, 75.5. I'd go under. Garoppolo rushing yards, 3.5. I like the over. Tevin Coleman rushing yards, 27.5. I'd go. That's tough. I would go over. I like Tevin Coleman a lot. Travis Kelce, 74.5 receiving yards. I like the under. George Kittle, 74.5 receiving yards. I like the under there too. Kyle Juszczyk yards combined, 12.5. I like the over. First touchdown score. I'm going to go with Tevin Coleman at 15-1. Other numbers, Raheem Morris at 650. George Kittle, 9-1. Deebo Samuel, 10-1. Emmanuel Sanders, 14-1. Kendrick Bourne, 16-1. San Francisco defense, special teams, 21-1. Matt Breida, 25-1. Garoppolo, 33-1. Kyle Juszczyk, 39-1. Damian Williams, 6-1. Travis Kelce, plus 750, as well as Tyreek Hill, McKill Hardman, and Sammy Watkins, 15-1. Pat Mahomes, 22-1. KCDST, 24-1. Now we're going to do some novelty props for the big game. I love the novelty props. The coin toss result, tails never fails, minus 103. MVP, Patrick Mahomes is almost even odds. It's plus 110. Garoppolo plus 250. Raheem Morris plus 850. Tyreek Hill 17-1. George Kittle 18-1. Travis Kelce 22-1. Damian Williams, Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa 24-1. Emmanuel Sanders, Sammy Watkins 35-1. Tevin Coleman 50-1. Tyrann Mathieu 65-1. Frank Clark, Mecole Hardman 70-1. Richard Sherman 85-1. And then Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Kendrick Bourne, Matt Breida, Matt Moore, Robbie Gould. Why is Matt Moore the backup quarterback? On the MVP list, 100-1. I mentioned it already. I like Nick Bosa at 24-1. Coin toss, I said tails never fails. Gatorade color, purple, even money, clear or water, plus 350. Red, plus 330. Yellow, green, lime, plus 350. Blue, 440, and an orange, 450. I have a feeling it's going to be orange. So let's go with orange at plus 550. My correct score pick of San Francisco 27, KC 23 comes in at plus or 150-1. So that'd be a pretty good one for me to hit. More passing yards, Jimmy Garoppolo plus 330, Pat Mahomes minus 310. I kind of like the Garoppolo one, actually, plus 230. Receiving props, most receiving yards, I like Deebo Samuel at plus 750. I think that's a nice one. Rushing props, running back receiving props, First running back to put 50-plus yards, Dame Williams at 2-1 and Rasheed Morset at minus 260. I like Dame Williams at 2-1. That, I think, is pretty valuable. Defense, special teams props. Player to record the most tackles plus assists. The one I like on here is Kawhi Alexander at 11-1. I really, really like. Defensive special teams touchdown, yes, plus 185, minus 240 for the no. I like the yes. The pick six is 9-1. I don't think we'll see a pick six. First sack by player, I'd say Nick Bosa plus 650 is the best one. Chris Jones and Frank Clark are plus 550 favorites by each. First interception, no interceptions 3-1. Richard Sherman plus 650 as well as Ty Matthew. Bashad Breeland and Chavius Ward are 10-1. Kendall Fuller, Kawhi Williams, and Daniel Sorensen 11-1. I would just bet Sherman. I feel like that one is kind of easy. Kicker punter props. Opening kick to be a touchback. Yes, minus 170. No, plus 135. I like the no at plus 135. Missed field goal props. Yes is plus 115. I'll take that. My favorite one is the missed point extra. Yes, plus 290. And then Chiefs are 5-1. San Francisco's plus 550. I take the yes at plus 290. I really, really like that. Punt for touchback, yes, plus 130, no, minus 165. I like the yes. And then the quarter half props, scoreless quarters, yes, plus 360, no, minus 550. I like the yes at plus 360. I think that is pretty intriguing. Both teams lead in the fourth quarter. I like the yes at plus 360 as well. But I wouldn't bet it because I think the game's going to kind of play out. The Niners will have the lead in the fourth quarter, and the Chiefs score a garbage time sort of touchdown. So that's it for the props. And now I'll move on to the awards, who I think will win all the awards. MVP, Lamar Jackson, no doubt about it. He had a fantastic season. Took the Ravens to a 14-2 record, but lost the division round. I think there's going to be some hate for Lamar, and he doesn't deserve the MVP because of the Titans' loss. And it's a regular season award. That's why Lamar will win it. And then my runner-up, Russell Wilson, Seattle Seahawks. Offensive Player of the Year, Lamar Jackson. Runner-up's a tough one. But the runner-up for the Offensive Player of the Year, maybe I will say Wilson. I think Lamar Jackson will end up taking both awards home. But I would give my runner-up award to Derrick Henry of the Titans. He had a really good year. Defensive Player of the Year, I want to say Nick Bosa. But he's the Defensive Rookie of the Year. But the Defensive Player of the Year, Aaron Donald did not have a great year by his standards. Khalil Mack wasn't very good this season. It has to be a pass rusher in my mind. Stephon Gilmore had a nice year, but he fell off a cliff at the end of the day. See if the award props are up for the NFL. I checked FanDuel. I don't see any, but Defensive Player of the Year, I might just say give it to Nick Bosa, because why not? But yeah, the awards are down. They're announced tomorrow night. I'm going to say Nick Bosa, but I don't feel good about it because he's a rookie. But runner-up, I'm going to say Stephon Gilmore. Offensive Rookie of the Year. This is a tough one for me. Kyler Murray had a nice year. I know there's hype about There's a hype about Daniel Jones for a little while. I don't think Jones or Minshew will win. Kyler Murray was just on a really bad Cardinals team, although he really had a nice season and carried them the wins that they had no business winning, like a win at Seattle before he got injured in that game. But yeah, this is the toughest award to gauge. There's no rookie running back to stand out other than Miles Sanders, who had a good year for Philadelphia. Josh Jacobs had a good year from the Raiders. So I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. He really helped that Raiders team be relevant in December, and that's hasn't been the case for the Raiders in a while, other than the year that Derek Carr and they had Khalil Mack. Derek Carr was MVP candidate, and he got injured at the end of the year. So I'm going to say Josh Jacobs, and my runner-up is going to be Kyler Murray. Defensive Rookie of the Year, no doubt about it, Nick Bosa. Runner-up is a tough one for me to pick. There's a lot of good defensive rookies. Dexter Lawrence of the Giants, Juan Thornhill of the Chiefs. You had Quinnen Williams of the Jets. Ed Oliver of the Bills. Let's go with Ed Oliver. He really helped that Bills team this season, and he's going to be a key part of that pass rush for years to come. Coach of the Year, Kyle Shanahan. His team's in the Super Bowl, and I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I know you can make case for John Harbaugh. He's my runner-up, but I think that was more about Lamar than it was about the team. So, I'm meaning the 14-2 was more about Lamar than the team. But to me, the 13-3 of the Niners was a team builder. And Kyle Shanahan is a great coach. He was had bad luck the last couple years without Garoppolo and then some other quarterback dysfunction there. And Garoppolo is really good, and he helped lead this team to the Super Bowl with that great defense as well. And the special teams is pretty good as well. So give me Kyle Shanahan for the Coach of the Year. My runner-up is going to be John Harbaugh. Comeback Player of the Year is a tough one. Aaron Rodgers helped his team get back to the postseason after being injury-prone, sort of. There's a couple guys. Carson Wentz, but he got hurt in the playoff game. Like, if Carson Wentz wins that award, it's going to be literally the dumbest award pick of all time. Carson Wentz is treated so highly because he had a very good 3/4 of a season before he tore his ACL. He was having the Mahomes season of last year and the Lamar season of this year before he tore his ACL. And that's what Carson Wentz is being judged by. And he hasn't really been that quarterback since he's been back from his injury. So I'm not picking Carson Wentz for the Comeback Player of the Year. There's other guys that I think should be mentioned in the conversation. Obviously, Rodgers, Garoppolo, coming off the injury. So let's go with Jimmy Garoppolo for the Comeback Player of the Year. It's my respect for them being in the Super Bowl. So Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be my pick for the Comeback Player of the Year. And then my runner-up, I guess, will be Aaron Rodgers because they're in the NFC title game. So Jimmy Garoppolo for the Comeback Player of the Year. I really, really like that pick. I think that he deserves that award. And last but not least, my best bets of the day, brought to you by DraftKings. We'll start in college basketball. There's a couple good ones in my mind that I could choose from. Actually, no, we're going to do it by FanDuel. My bad. So we'll start, like I said, with the NBA. Or, I'm sorry, college basketball. Actually, no, we'll do NBA first. My NBA best bet, I mentioned it before, the Dallas Mavericks. I don't get why Houston's that big of a favorite. So give me the Mavericks plus 9.5. I think they're live here. I think they can win the game outright. And in college basketball, my best play is Rhode Island. They're now getting one. I don't get it. Like, why are they an underdog? Like, VCU is not the team we thought they were. So, give me Rhode Island plus the 1 at home against VCU. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back on Monday recapping the big game and what prop bets hit and how the halftime show went. The Masked Singer premieres after the Super Bowl. We'll talk about that and possible guesses of the new masks and if any sports players or any big-time celebrities are in it. And then the Australian Open, we'll go over the final for that. We'll talk a little golf, college basketball, NBA, and NHL. Look ahead to the games for Monday night and my best bets as well. Hope you guys enjoy the Super Bowl, everybody.